Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's Parsha is Perashat Nasso. Parsha is the second Parsha in the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha begins by detailing all of the duties, the responsibilities that the Levi'im had, specifically in the tribes of Gershon and Merari. They were responsible for carrying out different parts of the Mishkan, especially when the Jewish people were moving location to location. We go through the idea of the cleansing of the camp. We're talking about the bringing the korban asham, the guilt offering, the sotah, the nazir, the blessings of the kohen, and the dedication of the mishkan, and so on and so forth. It's a very long and dense parsha, but there are there's two themes here that I want to kind of focus on that I think will help us appreciate the greater narrative of the actual text. So, Nazir and Sotah. The Nazir is a curious type of law, where the Nazir is someone who has a situation where he or she is, they drank too much, they had a problem with alcohol, and now the Torah is telling us that he could go ahead and take a vow and say, I'm taking a Nazir vow and I am no longer going to drink alcohol. I'm out. I'm cleansing myself. And you'd think that this is a good thing, but in Judaism, we know that the Nazir has to bring a korban asham, he has to bring a sin offering. This is not the ideal state that the Torah wants us to be in, and the question is why? The Pasuk says as follows. Pasuk says that that when a Nazir is going to make this claim, meaning he doesn't say how long he or she is going to be the Nazir, automatically he or she is going to be a Nazir for 30 days. 30 days of Nazirut. Now, however, when the Pasuk talks about the Nazir, he says he's a Nazir for all of his days. And the question is why? Why is it that this small declaration of Nazirut leads to all of his days when at minimum it's only 30 days? So we know that the Gemara tells us that Lama Nismacha Pasha Nazir the Pashat Sota. Gemara asks the question: why is it that there's a correlation between the Parsha of Nazir and Sota? A Sota is a woman that was accused by her husband of being unfaithful. Okay, so now the question is: why are these two stories in this one Parsha? These are heavy concepts, heavy ideas. And the Gemara says that to teach you that anyone who saw a sotah in her disgrace, right? If you know the sotah process, that she goes ahead and she's brought to the Beit HaMikdash, the accusation is a very painful, long process. Anyone who sees this should immediately take a vow to abstain from wine and become a Nazir. Okay, well, obviously, when a person sees corruption, right? He's going to be vulnerable to the corruption. So the Chavetz Chaim makes this point that what is a man? A man is what he sees and what he hears. Think about it for a second. The Chavetz Chaim is not saying that what a man is what he learned, or what his influences are. No, he's saying that a person is what he absorbs from the outside. A person is someone who is going to be defined very much by his or her environment. And therefore, if you saw this woman going through this disgrace, then maybe you should be someone who you might be influenced by this, therefore take some kind of a vow and stay away from any kind of wine, right? Stay away from any kind of distraction that's going to, God forbid, get you to a place of sinning. We don't want that. We want you to be in a place where you're going to develop and grow. Remember, Judaism is interested in one thing and one thing alone. It's interested in you becoming a well-balanced person, which is why, by the way, the Nazir, even though he's still taking on this amazing act of piety and removing all alcohol from him, he's still not ideal. That's not the ideal state. God doesn't want you to live in a world of extremes. He wants you to be able to enjoy the wine, but at the same time, create the boundaries necessary so that you don't fall off the edge. The Ramban writes, Derech brito shel adam liyot nimshach ba'edotav ma'asav acher ra'av v'chaverav v'noag minhag anshe medinot. It's a natural for a person's character and actions to be influenced by his friends and associates. and for him to follow the conduct of the minhag anshe community, the conduct of society, the society that he lives in. So we are very much influenced by our environment. And here are two individuals who are going through this unfortunate circumstance because of their environment. And this is why the Torah warns, "K'maseh eretz Mitzrayim asher yishavtem ba lo ta'asu." Don't follow the practices of the land of Egypt that you dwelled in. Right? This was said to the generation that inherited the land of Eretz Israel. These were the people that left, that Mitzrayim. They spent 40 years in Midbar, and they were very far away from anything that had to do with being Mitzrayim. But still, right? Why does it say Ba'asher Yeshavtem Bam? The Or Chaim says, right? Because if we figure out, the Torah is interested in cautioning us that since Egypt, Mitzrayim, was filled with all sorts of licentiousness, right? All sorts of corruption, and Bnei Israel were to dwell there, right? And they saw that behavior, they would be influenced by it. Even after spending 40 years in the Midbar, 40 years of Shekhinah, 40 years of Man, 40 years of all that, it doesn't matter. If you're surrounded in an environment where a person is surrounded by corruption, you are going to be influenced by that corruption, right? And the Or Chaim brings a proof from a Gemara in Kiddushin. The Gemara there tells a story that there was a group of women that were held captive and were eventually redeemed, and they came to a place called Narda. They were taken out of the house of Amram, right, who was a very pious person, and they were put in the attic to sleep. And the reason why he put them in the attic is because he wanted to avoid all temptation from these women. He had a very heavy ladder that would go up to the attic, and what he did was he would remove the attic because he required more than like 10 people to move this ladder. Okay, or there's a special staircase that moved. Anyway, Rav Amram, put the girls up there, and the 10 guys come and move this staircase or a ladder away. But when Rav Amram in the middle of the night passed by the attic, there was a sun, the sun, there was a light that shone through it, and he saw, I guess, the silhouette of a girl. His Yetzer Hara was so overcome by him that he took this ladder or stairwell by himself, and he single-handedly moved it back to this place and began climbing up the stairs. And he wasn't just climbing up the stairs because he wanted to check on them. It sounds like from the Gemara, he was going to do something very inappropriate. Halfway up, he freezes in his tracks and he cries out, "A fire! There's a fire in my house! Fire, fire, fire!" There was a certain Talmid Chacham that came and ran in, saw the stairwell, and he says, "Rebbe," the student says, "Rebbe, you shamed us," right? And they're referring to the humiliation because the Rebbe had such a big Yetzer Hara that how could he go ahead and do this? So they said, "Better that you shamed us from Amram in this world than in the next world." That's what he said to them. Better that you're shamed here than someplace else. He then forced his Yetzer Hara to depart, right? And it came out of him like a pillar of fire. He said, "See," he says, "you are fire and I am but flesh and blood, yet I am stronger than you." His name was Rav Amram HaChassid. He was a pious person. Yet the sight of those women, excuse me, somehow almost got him to this interesting place where he almost committed a sin. So what is the correlation here between the proximity of this text between Nazir and Sotah? So number one is that, hey, you know what? You're going to see bad things. It's going to impact you. No question about it. But also, it has to do with control of our conduct. Both the Nazir and Sotah represent individuals whose personal conduct was being challenged with self-control. The Nazir takes a vow to remove all kinds of extreme, drinking, all kinds of extreme self-discipline, whereas the Sotah is suspected of losing control. Whereas the Nazir is trying to gain control, the Sotah lost control. Both of these laws that come out of I'm so sorry, I'm still just overcoming this cold. It's becoming very difficult for me to speak. I'm just going to finish up a little bit, okay? So the consequences of their actions are both positive and negative, in both positive and negative directions. The Nazir, through the self-imposed extreme, act of saying, it reaches a high level of sanctity, right? Whereas the Sotah, through her actions, or even the suspicion of her actions, faces this potential humiliation and divine punishment. There is the use of speech, whereas both of them are, the case of Sotah, her husband makes a spoken declaration of his jealousy, and this triggers this whole entire status of getting to place where she goes to the Beit Mikdash and going through the whole Sotah process. Whereas the Nazir, it's the individual vow that creates the status, the state of a Nazirut. And in both cases, really, what we're dealing with is the power of words. Because ultimately, I believe that words define our reality. I'm so sorry. Words define our reality. And I think this idea is so important, especially in a generation where the culture that we're in right now is telling us that there are no definition for words. Words don't have any meaning. No, God forbid. You see, whoever is pushing these agendas recognizes that words shape our reality. The words that we use, they have an impact on our mitziyut, on our different layers of reality. And therefore, if we use the right words, we could hopefully make this world a better, greater place. But if we get people to start using the wrong kinds of words, all kinds of corruption and ideas will settle, and the world becomes a twisted, broken place. No one should ever have to see a sotah. No man should ever get to a place where he's so suspicious of his wife that he has to bring her to the Beit Din, bring her to a place where they have to erase God's name. That's not what we want. But rather, what we want is a world where you and I are striving to use our words in a meaningful kind of way so that we can make the world a better, greater place. That's what ultimately we want. This is how the Parsha ends, the idea of the Kohen using words to bring blessing. The idea that there's spiritual protection that we could all get from just hearing the Kohen's blessings is a powerful one. But I want you to walk away with Perashat Nasso as we're preparing. We're a few weeks away from the 3 weeks, from the Shavasar B'Tammuz, 3 weeks away from Rosh Chodesh into the month of Tammuz. This is the time to think about who we want to be, what kind of world we want to live in. If we're the kinds of people that are that allow ourselves to be taken in by our emotions, we allow ourselves to be defined by our reality, the things that we see outside of ourselves, we're settling and expressing the lowest version of ourselves. Perashat Nasso, and the truth is, we'll see this next week even in Pa'alotra, that words is where we see the breakdown of society. Words is the breakdown of families. Words, how we use our words, that is where and how it impacts our greater reality. Children that know how to use the right words, parents that know how to use the right words, spouse that knows how to use the right words, community members. This is how you build society. When we lose all of that, we're pushed to extremes. The extreme of the Nazir, which is bad, and certainly the extreme of the Sotah, which is also bad. What do we want? Torah wants us to be balanced. Bring balance. How do you bring balance into the world? If your speech is extreme, even in a joking way, it's bad. Find a way to express yourself in the most simple, humble way possible, a balanced way. And you'll find the bracha that the Kohanim are offering us in their brachot. Yivarecha Hashem Yishmerecha, God shall bless us. He'll give us all the countenance that we need. Everything we need to find success is there, but be mindful that so much of what we pull into our reality starts with this, because this shapes this. Wishing you all a Shavua Tov, a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. May we only hear great things, see great things. May we be surrounded by awesome people who are doing great things. We could elevate ourselves using the right words to become the best, greatest version of ourselves, and in turn making this world into a much better, brighter place. Thank you so much for listening, and Bezrat Hashem, I'll see you all next week.